This is HFO's Multifamily Market Watch, presented by Pacific Exteriors Northwest, a contractor specializing in siding and exterior envelopes, delivering exceptional quality and service for over 30 years. By Aprio, combining DeLapp's Pacific Northwest experience with Aprio's global resources to offer unparalleled tax, wealth management, and advisory services for real estate owners. And by Kennedy Restoration, helping residential and business owners recover from fire, water, mold, and storm damage.
Welcome back to Multifamily Market Watch. I'm Greg Frick, partner with HFO Investment Real Estate. Today we have with us Blake Schildes, manager of the Oregon Department of Energy. And we're going to talk a little bit about multifamily building performance standards. Blake, thanks for taking the time to do this for our audience.
Thanks for having me.
For multifamily owners hearing building performance standards for the first time, what is that, and what are we trying to solve here?
Yeah, good question. So the Oregon Building Performance Standard is meant to address energy efficiency in existing buildings. And so what does energy efficiency mean? It means kind of getting the same level of service for heating, cooling, comfort, lighting, using less energy, less resources. The less energy we use, the less we need to produce and deliver, and the less we spend on our utilities. So the BPS, the Building Performance Standard, it covers large commercial buildings, and requires them to, and multifamily, and requires them to evaluate their energy use. These buildings may need to enhance operations and implement measures to reduce energy use. Some examples of multifamily buildings that are covered by the program include large apartment buildings. Some cases might be mixed use with commercial on the ground floor, residential above, for example. And then you ask a question about the issues and the solutions. What's it trying to solve? Existing buildings in Oregon account for nearly 20% of our energy use, and policies that encourage energy efficiency have been extremely successful in reducing that energy use. It's important to note that improvements made through programs like the BPS can bring benefits to building owners, including non-energy benefits like improved occupant comfort, indoor air quality. Energy efficiency investments often provide more comfortable homes, workplaces, lower tenant energy bills, and otherwise improve the quality of life for residents. We think there's also kind of a clear workforce development component to the BPS. It directly supports development of and investment in the local workforce of energy professionals to help owners manage building performance, including designers, engineers, consultants, building construction trades, in order to improve their buildings. And then there's an active building management piece to it too. BPS participation leads to increased awareness, active management of energy and performance and cost. And most buildings are going to either meet the targets for the cycle or will only need to benchmark, and I know we'll get into that in a bit more detail later. And cost-effective energy investments in buildings that don't meet their targets will reduce energy costs and improve affordability for building owners and tenants.
Join the HFO community and get weekly multifamily intel. Click to subscribe.
And again, this is for both. Is this focusing more on existing buildings opposed to just new construction?
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, good question. The Building Performance Standard is a new policy that is meant to focus on existing buildings as opposed to new construction, where our energy codes typically cover the new construction piece. So it's meant to be complementary to energy codes.
And then for our audience, which is, predominantly, multifamily buildings, are there some that are covered by the standards and some that are not? Is there like a cutoff, or how does that work?
There are, yeah. So the Building Performance Standard is designed based on building size and building square footage, and gross floor area. So multifamily buildings that are 35,000 square foot or greater, excluding parking garages. So that's a really important distinction, that parking garage square footage does not count toward whether or not you're under or over that 35,000 square foot threshold. So multifamily buildings that are 35,000 square foot or greater are covered by the standard, but are what known as Tier 2 building within the the program.
Right.
There are tier 1 and tier 2 buildings, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later, the distinction between the requirements of a tier 1 and tier 2 building.
If you have multiple buildings on a site, is it the gross of all the buildings, or do you look at each building individually in terms of the square footage requirement?
Yeah, really good distinction, because we do get that question quite a bit. It's related to each individual building itself. It's not an aggregate of all the buildings on a campus or all the buildings that are combined. It's individual discrete buildings and whether or not that building itself is over that size threshold.
Okay. So how does an owner find out if if their building is in scope or not scope? Is there something they should do on that? Is it they reach out to a consultant? What's the step for that?
Yeah, really good question. So we sent out, there's a couple different ways that they could find out whether or not their building's covered. The first one to do is on our website, on our compliance software. It's known as Beam that we're rolling out right now. There's a publicly available map that owners can create a free account and use it to see if their building has already been identified by our team.
Okay.
Each building that's been identified will have a unique building identifier, or a UBID. We've identified about 20,000 covered buildings in the state. Additionally, we sent out about 30,000 pieces of mail in the middle of last year to notify as many building owners as possible of the BPS requirements. So there's a couple different ways, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the building owner to understand if their building's large enough, if their gross floor area is big enough to make it a covered building and to comply, even if we've notified them previously, or even if we didn't notify them through the letters and the mailers that we sent last year. But we're here to help. So there's a form on our website that owners can fill out called Add My Building, where they can add the building if it's large enough without having to reach out directly to us. But we also encourage people to drop us a line and an email and submit a help desk ticket.
And then, should owners start in 2026 to do this, though if reporting isn't due to 28? Is this just to kind of get an early start on the process?
Yeah, they should. So that's right, that the first compliance dates don't actually kick in until the middle of 2028.
Okay.
But one thing that owners can be doing now is making sure that they have all the steps in place and the processes in place to gather their energy data, that they have a kind of a hold on their operating characteristics, and really confirm as soon as possible that their building is actually a tier 2 building. Because if it does end up being a tier 1, for example, if it's more than 50% office or retail space, then it would or could have to meet that energy target, and they may need to take further actions to reduce their energy consumption. So the sooner that a building owner starts collecting their energy data, starts understanding their usage, the better shape that they'll be once that 2028 deadline kicks in.
Got it. And I think a majority of the multifamily, I think, is going to fall in the tier 2, just because of the, unless it's a true, half retail or half office. But majority of the ones in our state are going to be probably tier 2, just in terms of even the mixed use. There's not that high of a percentage of retail.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I know one question that's come up, as I know Washington has something similar to this, is especially for multifamily, where they don't have, with tenants having, their own utility accounts with the, providers. Are you looking more for what the building's doing for like what we call like the house meter, or are you trying to get what the actual tenants are using, and how does an owner go about getting that from Pacific Power or PGE? Yeah,
it's a really good question, and something that we were thinking about as we were going through our rulemaking process back in 2024. The building performance standard is focused on whole building energy, so it does include all of the tenant meters included in that total as well. But one of the things that we did as we were going through our rulemaking back in 2024 is we worked really closely with our utility partners. And as part of our rules, we included a provision that allows a building owner, and specifically for multifamily buildings that have 5 or more unique accounts, unique individual meters on there, a building owner can go directly to their utility and request aggregated, anonymized data for the entire building without having to work individually with each tenant. and the utility is required to provide them. If it's a large electric utility or a large gas utility in Oregon, they're required to provide them with that aggregated whole building energy data for the purposes.
So that's
of
in the
reporting.
statute, so to speak, that the utility providers have to provide that information to owners when they make their request.
That's right. It's in our rules. It's in the Oregon BPS standard rules itself. We're really thankful for the opportunity to work with our utility partners on that, and we have monthly or bi-monthly working group calls with our utility partners to make sure that they're all getting prepared to start receiving more requests from building owners.
Okay, got it. So they know this is coming.
They do.
Okay. Now I know I know there's costs and penalties and support. I mean, what does non-compliance, what does that mean if, once the reporting standard is done? Is there going to go to a point where it's like a non-compliance, or is that more for Tier 1 buildings?
It is more for Tier 1 buildings. So there are civil penalties included in the statute that are equivalent to $5,000 plus $1 per square foot per year for non-compliance. There is a lengthy process under which a civil penalty would be assessed that includes multiple steps of notification and opportunities for correction. But again, those civil penalties would only apply to Tier 1 buildings. It would not apply to Tier 2 multifamily buildings.
Okay, got it, okay. Because I know one question that came up from some owners when we were talking about it, it's like, they can do the engineering reporting, but how much control do they have over what their tenants are using for, example, electric? You can't really tell a tenant, as a rental housing provider, how much electric to use or not use.
Sure. Yep. Understood.
And then, is there any accommodation for, affordable housing, or is it all housing grouped together if you're 5 units or above, or is there different tiers for different types of housing?
The way that the thresholds are defined, it's really just over 35,000 square foot is really the only distinction for building size. There are considerations, cost burden and affordability is something that has continually been on our mind as we're administering the program. We've kind of discussed a little bit at its core how the program is really aimed at cost-effective energy savings that reduces operating expenses and improves margins. We've incorporated, like I mentioned, that ability for building owners to aggregate their data to reduce and streamline some of the efforts when they're going through reporting. And then we've issued and offered some incentives and opportunities for building owners to receive some funding for doing some early compliance actions and for implementing energy measures as well.
Okay. And what's the most useful input the department can get from the industry right now and owners? I mean, what should owners do if they've got questions, or how do they stay updated? I know you guys sent out a letter, but do they go to the website, or what's the best way to, we get more questions about this?
Yeah, good question. So we encourage owners and industry to get in there to our compliance software, our BEAM software, and claim their buildings and tell us more about their buildings and their contact information, so that we know who they are and that we can share information about the program as it rolls out. We would love to see more applications for our incentive program, specifically our building energy reduction, our Berry incentive program, that provides funding for implementation of actual measures. So think like HVAC, heating, cooling equipment, lighting, controls. We'd love to see more of those applications come in from the multifamily sector. We want to hear about any issues or challenges that you're facing and any resource constraints that you have, since although it's still early in the program, we're beginning to kind of take those into account as we look ahead to future recommendations and program updates. I didn't mention it before, but one of the tasks that we have as an agency is, after we gather the data that will be reported to us in 2028, we'll be making a recommendation to the legislature and the governor's office regarding a building performance standard for Tier 2 buildings like multifamily. So we want to hear about any issues and challenges that are happening. We have convened a Tier 2 advisory committee that's meeting, and we'll continue to meet with that advisory committee over the years, and its function is going to grow and expand as we get closer to that recommendation date in 2030. And then you
And
kind of
are there already stakeholders involved in the advisory committee for Tier 2?
There are, yeah, there are. We've got a couple dozen stakeholders and some multifamily representatives on there too. But Tier 2 includes hospitals, universities, dorms, and schools as well. So we've got representatives of those sectors on there as well.
Well, great. Well, thanks. I'm sure we're going to get together again and kind of as we get closer to 28 and, trying to get more adoption of people getting in this early. But I want to thank you for taking the time to kind of introduce this because, again, we've had a lot of questions about it as these letters went out. I think people had, what do I do and do I qualify, not qualify? So, again, Blake, thanks for taking the time to meet with our audience again, and we'll see you next time on Multifamily Market Watch. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
HFO's entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making us the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Like and subscribe to Multifamily Market Watch videos on YouTube, articles on LinkedIn, and podcasts on all major streaming markets. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information. HFO is a partner of the Global Real Estate Advisor Network.
Love the insights? Tap the like button and click subscribe. It helps us bring more multifamily news straight to you.